Welcome to Soundwaves, a Transformers publication history. I'm Ian, a longtime fan of the Transformers and its various fictions. You can find me posting hobby content online at @AnotherTimeTF.
And I'm Lexi, Ian's girlfriend and a newcomer to the Transformers fandom, with no previous knowledge of the story behind the bots.
Merry Christmas, everyone! In this episode, we tackle issues 41 through 50 of the Marvel UK comic, rounding out year one of the book with some additional issues with the 1984 cast.
This time, we won't be doing summaries at the top of the episode, but instead we'll just dive right in to our takes, and as we go through, we'll kind of give you an overview of what's going on in each issue.
That sounds great. So, Lexi, why don't you take us away with our special Christmas issue, Christmas Breaker? Dive into a little bit of what happens in this one, and we'll get into our reactions after that.
Yeah, we have Circuit Breaker. I've forgotten her real name already.
Josie.
Josie. Okay. Josie and the Pussycats. That's how I'll remember it. In a yet skimpier somehow version of her horrible costume, even though it's snowing outside, she is very angry at the robots. She's kind of reflecting over her whole history with them. And then we do a hard cut from her screaming that she wants to kill all of them to Optimus in a Santa Claus suit.
Yes, so Buster is teaching everyone about Christmas. They're setting up a horrible metal tree, not really understanding the purpose. By the end of this issue, I'll say I also don't really understand the purpose. I feel like I haven't learned a whole lot about Christmas. But the thrust of this issue is they're setting up a little holiday celebration. Jazz takes Buster out for a ride in the snow, and they have a run-in with Circuit Breaker, who misconstrues Jazz's actions as being intended to hurt Buster after a spin out. But thankfully, the spirit of Christmas lets bygones be bygones, and everyone goes on their merry, holly jolly ways.
Yep, the spirit of Christmas really comes in clutch there. Yeah, Jazz is like, Buster, you saved me. And he's like, no, it wasn't me. It was Christmas.
It was Christmas, the spirit of Christmas. So this is a short, I think it's our shortest one single or standalone story yet, because the way the UK comic works is mostly because of the shorter per issue format, because it ran in these sort of general activity comic magazines, at least at this point. The US stories were all split up into roughly 11-page chunks, and the UK original stories are also usually multi-parters within those 11-page formats. And this, I believe, is our first one where it's a one and done in those 11 pages, so it's a very short little, just sort of holiday special chapter.
Yeah, very short.
So obviously not a whole lot added to the plot here, but...
I was going to say, there's not a lot we can say about this except for Christmas.
You know? Well, I say but, and maybe that's important to emphasize because you noted with our art style this time, and we should actually, while we're doing these sort of impromptu summaries, still make sure we're getting at the teams. So the script is by James Hill on this, and art is by William Simpson, who I do tend to like on the book. He's on some of these early issues. But Circuit Breaker's outfit has somehow gotten even skimpier. It's barely keeping her, I would say probably not keeping her warm at all out in these snowy panels.
No, definitely not. She has her first kind of, at least that we've seen, run-in with other people who treat her like a freak monster. And she's crying because they're bullying her, and she was just trying to help them. So, an interesting, I guess extra added layer to her story, and probably foreshadowing for what she'll experience more later, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. It almost feels a little bit like a hat on a hat. It feels like it's that Marvel mutant kind of take for, someone who has powers is a freak, a monster. And so the context is she saved a child from drowning in frigid waters right before the run-in with Jazz and Buster. And... rather than being regaled as a hero, they're afraid of her. And I don't know. I feel like that's maybe unnecessary because I feel like there's enough that she's doing in the book in terms of showing collateral damage for the war and conflict spillover. I don't know if we need this sort of gesture on top of it, but thoughts?
I kind of like it, actually. It just gives like another layer to her character. And she needs so many more added onto her because she is very cold and skimpily clad. So
more physical layers.
More physical layers, the better. So no, I kind of liked it. Now that you mention it, yeah, it definitely has that X-Men flavor to it, kind of like mutant energy. But I don't know. I hope they keep up with that, and then maybe it fuels kind of like a self-reflection, empathy spiral for her later on. That's just my hope.
Yeah. I actually do, to my surprise, have a few more things to say about this. So
Oh,
number one,
wow.
on the art front, William Simpson has sort of a dramatic, I guess more realistic,
Hmm.
sort of a lot of air quotes around that, but
Yeah.
take. It's a very soap opera comic, and he especially utilizes that not only in these really, maybe overly dramatic soap operatic panels of circuit breaker seething and sort of having her emotional turmoil, but also her flashbacks to Soundwave at the plant, or what she's imagined or seen footage of. We get some really monstrous nightmare drawings of Soundwave with screws coming out of his fingers and
Oh, yeah.
more intensely robot-y elements than the actual character design has. So I think that's some fun play with the trauma presentation there.
Hmm. Yeah.
And then we see in a later page, before she blasts a tree after the children have spurned her, there's an image of Shockwave sort of floating in the air in front of a frozen tree. So I do like to play with that. I actually have two other continuity notes.
Okay.
So I hadn't thought about this until just this moment, but a note for two elements on the front, I guess the title page for the issue.
Mm-hmm.
So number one, we have a date, a rare date for the series. So she's looking at a newspaper that is explicitly December 24th, 1985.
Oh.
So there is actually a chronology to the series, and it does keep rough place with real time.
Wow.
So roughly a year of issues in this comic is a year in the story of the comic, I think with some cheats here and there. So by the time we're a few years in the book, there will be references to things having taken place over the past several years in real time. So this is a little nod to that, or I guess sort of the start of maybe that policy happening. So there's, that one real world date. And then as far as the Transformers being public or not, which is going to be a running theme moving forward, we have freed workers tell their story, Robot War on Earth. So they seem to be indicating that the plant workers who were captured by Shockwave and Soundwave have overheard bits and pieces and are at least telling a story about what the actual situation is with the, robot civil war happening.
Mm-hmm.
But how much of that is actually out and how much is believed is going to be a big subject of issues moving forward.
Okay. So it's the setup for all of that.
Kind of. I think it's more askance of it. So moving forward, we'll find out that it's actually not, that story is not widely known or accepted. So I think maybe this is a little bit of UK overstep in terms of where the US book winds up going, but there are bits and pieces that different people seem to know or not know. So I just think it's interesting that we get that sort of front page news, Robot War on Earth here. And actually, minor spoilers, that's not the story that most people will seem to be believing in terms of the general public moving forward.
Okay. That sounds more likely just in terms of how humans would be thinking that it's like a hoax or something.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in that alien robots are doing a civil war on your planet.
Yeah, a little bit. Although I wonder if any children saw the newspaper panel and they're like, it's happening now. It's real. They're like imagining.
Finally, my dream.
Yes, it's my time.
Oh boy, we skipped over the first annual, but we'll go back to it probably along with the second and hold that thought that you've just had.
Okay.
But a little more Buster here as well. He's going to be very backseat, mostly out of the book for quite a while moving forward. So one last little Buster send off. Thanks, Christmas.
Thanks, Christmas, little Christian boy.
We don't know that he's Christian, but one can assume. I've learned a lot about the powers of Christ from this issue. Do you think they explained religion to the Transformers, or did they just tell them about Christmas and the pageantry of it?
Probably the latter.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, it is kind of hard to understand because it's not just religious background that the traditions are based in, so it's like a mishmash of everything. But probably just like, oh yeah, we make a tree and then we, put up presents underneath and have Santa Claus comes. Speaking of Christ.
Speaking of Christ?
Is Optimus kind of a Christy character, a Christ figure a little bit?
Well, are you aware of his many deaths throughout sort of the general
and he already kind of close to died once, so he's Lazarus-y.
He does. He has a lot of sacrificial deaths.
Okay, okay. Then
I
we'll
do
get
have
to
a
that later.
Yeah, I have a logistical question. Where, speaking of Santa Claus, where did they get an Optimus-sized Santa outfit?
Oh, we shouldn't question these things.
Okay, and one more question. So right at the end of the issue, Jazz has a gun trained on Circuit Breaker. Would he have done it?
Maybe. You mean if not for Christmas?
If not for Christmas, well, she destroys his little laser blaster, but would he have pulled the trigger on this human?
Probably.
Wow.
Oh, but he says, I don't want to hurt you. Maybe not Jazz. I feel like Jazz would be, I mean, as he was shown to be more hesitant, but I feel like maybe Prowl or another more hot-headed Autobot wouldn't hesitate as much.
Okay, interesting. Interesting
Hmm.
in context of some other Transformers stories too, but
Okay.
I'll save that for later.
Okay.
All right. Well, speaking of Prowl, should we move into the second story for today's batch?
Yeah, let's do it. This one is Ravage's Resolution, Anarchy in the Ark. Is that the title?
So our next story is Crisis of Command.
Okay.
That's the cover copy.
Oh, let me say it.
Okay.
All right, let's move into the next story, Crisis of Command.
Okay, I'm going to take the summary for this one really quick.
Okay.
Prowl says, "Why don't we do a little war crime as a treat?" And Optimus almost agrees until he gets his mojo back by princess carrying Bumblebee.
Yep. That's it. That's all that
That's
happens.
it. Lexi, why don't you take us away on Crisis of Command?
Me?
Sure.
You already gave like things that we can talk about?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I think the first thing that is happening in Crisis of Command is Optimus has just come back from being only a head. He's just had to kind of deal with him being controlled and having like attacked his own people, and also worrying about the fact that he endangered Buster and other humans with the very fact that the Transformers are there on the planet, and by giving Buster the creation matrix. So he's kind of having a hard time right now. He's in his head even more so than when he was just a head. He's also worrying about whether or not the Autobots will follow him anymore. So his leadership is in question potentially. He's questioning every move that he's going to make. Like you said, Prowl suggests that they should make a move on the Decepticons and just take them out, like completely destroy them, wipe them off the face of the earth. And for that reason, he suggests creating like a specifically warrior race of Autobots. Because like, as Optimus says, he doesn't want to be a warrior. He's not a warrior by choice, but he has kind of had to take on that mantle. And that's when Prowl is like, well, let's just make some, warrior bots who are only like supposed to kill people.
Yeah, and this is tying back into, right, so we've learned that he has the Matrix, which can make other Transformers, so Prowl's suggestion is why not use that to create a race of dedicated super warriors, basically.
Right, exactly. And usually the Optimus that we know would probably right away be like, that's not the solution. We're not going to just murder people right and left. But when he's in this kind of fragile head state, he is questioning, is that the right thing to do? Would that result in less human loss ultimately? He's very much questioning it. So that's interesting. Yeah, I think this issue really builds Optimus's character a lot.
Yeah, I do want to, before we get too far into it, the team for this. So an issue, again, that's not Simon Furman. I've constantly misremembered this story as being a Simon Furman piece because he's the main writer on the UK book now. But this is a singular entry by Mike Collins, 2 parts, but this singular story. And the art is actually our first one, I believe, by Jeff Sr., who is a recurring contributor to the UK book and eventually the US book as well. And I actually didn't realize, because his style's a little rough here still, that this was him on the first reread the other day. But yeah, I can tell now. He's got a very blocky, very angular sort of dynamic look to him.
I can see that.
Yeah, but this is, I guess you said like, well, this doesn't seem like the Optimus we know, but for me, this one is pretty interesting because even though it is in the UK book and it's adjacent and not taken into account on the US side, this is one of the stories that really, I think, best establishes Optimus early on, and Budiansky will continue to take him in a similar direction. So maybe it's just serendipitous, but both books are starting to drill in on a much more pacifistic Optimus. And we both noted in the early issues on both sides, he was sort of this undefined warrior cipher, at arms men type, are you warriors? Fight. And
very much like the general, warrior general trope.
Yeah, and it doesn't really inspire a lot, and it doesn't really feel distinct. But this is, I think, the first time where it takes a moment to establish that he is, a pacifist leader and an unwilling leader, and upcoming U.S. issues get into that as well, and is specifically going to make choices that are not expedient militaristically. And so we're getting the first signs of a character where it's this moral paradigm take where the conflict is not, well, here there is a character conflict attached to it as well, but the conflict is not, are they going to lose resolve in a lot of cases, but it's, is their resolve putting them at odds with practicalities? And that is something that I actually really like about the series and really like about Optimus, and we're getting little shades of that now, and that's something it's going to continue to run with.
It makes him so much more interesting as a character, makes him a lot more likable, and as you said, fleshed out, like not just some archetype or trope. He is someone who questions things, has flaws, has to worry about the choices that he is making. And I think it makes him a really good hero character, or it will, like this is kind of the foundation, like you said, for him to become that. And yeah, it harkens to other characters who say and do similar things where, the easy route is not necessarily the right one. Those kinds of things, that kind of idea seems to be very much on his mind here. So
yeah, and this is getting at this is the start of it really, I think, becoming applicable as a sort of simple metaphor for some real world context as well, because I think in real life and here, in the year of our Lord 2026, like there are a lot of people who I think do advocate for what Prowl's position here is, and historically in conflict, right? A lot of people justify things with exactly Prowl's logic, which is, well, let's just finish this. Let's do whatever we have to do, and we'll wipe out our enemy. And right, it seems so easy. Here it is presented in a story for children, right? That you're meant to identify that as not being the right tact, but it gives it space, and it has Optimus worry about that, and then it moves into a rejection of it. But it really, I think
it's important.
I don't know. This is that thing where I really like about sort of pop genre fiction, where it's your trial run with these heady issues in a safe and sometimes fun surface level environment, but you're meant to glean things from that and apply them to real world scenarios that, might be murkier. So I really like it getting into that territory. And I think, I mean, there are a lot of people who are Prowls in this context.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, we live in Japan, and we've both been to, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Have you been to Nagasaki?
I've not been to Nagasaki, but I've been to Hiroshima.
That's right. But yeah, I mean, obviously that's like one of the biggest singular or two moments, in human history where there have been several Prowls speaking to, that same idea where if we just make this executive decision, it may lead to peace sooner or fewer casualties on our side on the ground or what have you.
Yep.
But results in absolutely horrific, unspeakable tragedy. Not just a tragedy, like a, human-caused horrific moment in history.
Yeah, that was very specifically on my mind going through this, where, it's, I mean, the book almost has Prowl make that same argument word for word, where it's, let's just be done with this. And, Optimus sees the fearful outcome in terms of human cost, which he explicitly brings up, and then also just cultural cost to the Autobots if they're going into full, warmonger mode to meet this moment, and what does that do down the line, and where does that end? And I mean, yeah, absolutely. In something like, yeah, use of the atomic bombs, it's the historical justification, and we're taught especially in schools in America is, well, there were a lot of legitimate reasons to do this, or I guess it's one thing to be responsible for your own soldiers in that case, but without getting into all of the nitty gritty about what hints that they may not have been justified. But it's that thing of, okay, well, what is it costing, and who is it costing? And, what gives you that right to make that choice? And is that sound, and is that moral, and should we accept that? And for this book to start getting at that this early on, and that's part of why this is a series that, as silly as it can be, does stick with me and has stuck with me through adulthood. And this is just the first tip of that iceberg of it starting to dive into those real themes with goofy alien car robots. But it's that juxtaposition of pop culture silliness and real world application that I really tend to like in general, and that is here with, I think, a lot of sincerity in this story.
I mean, yeah, we've talked about this a lot just in our daily lives, but that's the most powerful thing about fiction, right? Is, as you mentioned, like, you can take this story that is meant for children technically, and, very much in this safe space where you can digest it. But you can apply those fundamental ideas to real life situations and real life scenarios. And it can help people to understand, like, is this right? Is this wrong? Well, these are the ideas that I learned from this piece of fiction. It's just so important to grapple with those in your own mind and for your own self, in safe spaces like fiction. And to see characters who challenge those kind of evil, quick solutions to problems like Prowl might. We were just talking about the other day, kind of archetypes like Optimus, but in Gandalf from Lord of the Rings, he kind of has the same take. He kind of sums it up very simply in the words that you said you were thinking about the other day, which was like, who are we to decide who lives and who dies, basically. This is paraphrasing, but Optimus kind of comes to the same conclusion here. Like, that's not for us to decide. We shouldn't control the guillotine necessarily. Like, we shouldn't be the arbiters of life and death here.
Yeah, and we shouldn't be inviting our war to, wreak further consequences on this world, or, going there as a group and a people in general. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, this isn't my favorite metaphorical Transformers story by any stretch. I think it actually is for some people, which I think is very fair. And I think coming up as early in the book as it does, like, it definitely leads an impact. I was a little bit more taken with it this time than I have been on previous reads. Yeah, I think it's strongly expressed here. And I think especially, I can't think of many other kids' book in the 80s that would have allowed getting at this type of theme at all, to even be able to go there, and then to come out so doggedly, I guess, anti-war. I think my thesis for the book as a whole is that it's an anti-war book.
Definitely.
For kids, ostensibly. And there are very few other properties that would have let you go there in the space, with the audience that this has, and especially in the jingoistic 80s, as a US and UK book. So I really, I appreciate the nods to this here in this story. Even if it isn't my favorite personally, it's getting at a lot of things I really do appreciate at this juncture. I guess we should get into the second part, which is Crisis of Command Part 2. This time, we actually have a different scriptwriter on it. So it's James Hill, and the art is still Jeff Senior, but with a very different inking style, or coloring style, which almost makes it look like a different artist. So I'm actually not sure what was going on behind the scenes, and I don't know if Furman was maybe still involved in an editorial capacity with these. I might need to look into that. But a very scattered writing team on these two. But I think it's, despite that, one of the stronger ones for the book so far, at least on the UK side. So yeah, Part 2, I guess, quick summary of what happens.
Part 2, so Bumblebee... Oh, we didn't really mention this in the last one, but in the Part 1 of Crisis of Command, Ravage has infiltrated the Ark, and gotten caught, unbeknownst to the Autobots at the time, but on purpose, got caught and was put in a cell on the Ark. And the opening part of part 2 is Bumblebee chasing after Ravage, who has since escaped the cell on the Ark and is trying to get back to the Decepticons, who ultimately are waiting in ambush for Bumblebee. And they take him prisoner and send a message to the Autobots in the form of a limb, an arm ripped off of Bumblebee's poor body. That's the end of part 2. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we can combine part 2 and part 3. Part 3, by the way, back to Mike Collins. So again, I'm not really sure what was happening on the script rotation here with art by John Stokes this time. But we can just combine these. They really, really sort of play out as the back half of the story.
I was going to say, I thought it was all one part for some reason. Yeah. But basically, once once the Autobots get the message that Bumblebee is in danger, they run after him. Specifically, Optimus runs after him and tries to rescue him. And thus ensues a fight between the Autobots and the Decepticons. Mainly just Optimus versus Decepticons, but...
Yeah, just Optimus. He goes alone.
Oh, he goes alone. That's right. It's just him. This is a solo mission. This is also his, journey, kind of this whole Crisis of Command arc is him starting in a really lost space, being forced to jump into action, and then ending with him princess carrying beautiful Bumblebee, poor little baby Bumblebee, back to the Ark. And that is what kind of switches the gears in his head to be like, okay, I didn't choose to be a warrior and I didn't choose to be a leader necessarily. I don't really want to be, but I'm here and I'm willing to do it and I'm going to do it even if I don't necessarily feel super jazzed about it or anything. He's going to stand up and be the leader that they need. And that is a leader who doesn't, kill wantonly just to make things easier for them. He's going to protect those he cares about and also make sure there's not collateral damage along the way. So yeah, has a pretty good ending for him.
Yeah, I guess my only issue with this really is I actually don't love that it just comes down to a big fight. And
yeah,
fair enough, because this is in keeping with the tone and the audience of the book. But I think that this would be slightly stronger if the resolution for Optimus were not tied to being really good in battle, because it seems like that's directly tied to what gives him his confidence back. And as a little digestible arc for the audience of the book especially, sure, it makes sense. And it doesn't really diminish the themes it gets at, but I wish there were more clarity, I guess, on strictly a thematic or moral front in that argument, instead of it just being, well, he's feeling doubts, he does a great action guy mission, he saves Bumblebee, and then he feels like he's confident enough to firmly lay down his stance as a leader. That's fine, but it does undercut, I think, a little bit of that good sort of pacifist message it has going. Not entirely, but it weakens it a little bit for me, and this is maybe why it's not one of my favorite stories thematically in the greater Marvel Transformers over.
That's fair. Maybe it could have, done something where they had humans being in danger versus, I don't know, throwing some human element in where he has to not only protect his own people, but also the humans who are put in danger. Something like that where, the pacifist route has to be taken and it ends up working well for everybody. Something like that. I don't know.
I think that's actually right on the money. I think that actually is exactly what would put this over for me is having more of a direct human interaction element, because it's so central to his moral argument. And that's why I really like having the humans in the book, because as we move into... So later portions of the book get increasingly into sort of cosmic scope and scale and more about the Transformers themselves and some good metaphors that are to be had there. But it really is important to me that it comes off of a lot of human-centric stories beforehand, and I think that's exactly why, and that's why I lean a little bit more toward the U.S. book on this in this era, because it does have those human interaction stories more.
Yeah.
So then when we pair that with these stories of sort of, conflict morality, it has more genuine weight to it and more pathos. I think I've talked about that a little bit in some of our previous discussions, but yeah, I think that is the element that's missing here, maybe.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see what you mean. It is kind of a little too cut and dry with, it ending because he was good in battle, Ultimately, he is quite a good warrior and good at cleaning up when it comes to beating other robots up. But yeah, it is, I guess, kind of a bummer that that's what brought him back to his like kind of pacifist leader side, because it doesn't quite ring true then, I guess. But yeah, I think it's still tidy enough that it works.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a story I want to workshop slightly, and that isn't really necessarily fair because I think it is strong at what it does in the format, and God knows, writing a weekly UK comic for all ages in the 80s. So, like, fair enough. I love that it goes there at all, but it's so close to, I think, getting to that next step and really going above and beyond for me that I'm slightly tempted just to workshop that element of the ending.
It is interesting. I'm looking at the very last part, the last panel of the story, and he says, he's standing in front of all of the Autobots, kind of reclaiming his leadership, reestablishing it. And he's like, there will be no dedicated Autobot warriors. And I really read that right in this moment, especially or what we were just talking about with the atomic bombs, is like no nukes, basically. Like no, because that's what those warriors would be, right? They would be weapons of mass destruction and potentially really hurt Earth overall, like, and destroy a lot of the world. So yeah, it's just cool to see that message, and especially in these days too, in this day and age where the world is a scary place. So
I mean, it turns out that throughout history and especially now, a lot of people do actually believe we can get a little war crime as a treat, or it's not that bad. There's a lot of justification. So on that note, I do like the ending page, and I think, yeah, you've directed me to that last panel, and that actually is inspiring in sort of this big, bold pop culture way where I guess that, in a sense, does dovetail well with the ending for me, where it establishes him as this all-powerful, barrel-chested, rough and tumble 80s machismo hero, right? But then it goes into, it leverages that, and it immediately spins it into no nuke. And that is actually really powerful and inspiring.
Yeah.
It's that Superman idea of just this paradigm idea of, or ideal of, absolute power that doesn't corrupt absolutely. And it's that fantasy, and to see that and get, what if there were a really powerful, inspiring, capable, competent, leader who had the moral fortitude to say no nukes in that moment. And what a fantasy that we just don't get in real life very often. And there is a real power to seeing that here in this type of fiction.
There definitely is. Yeah. I mean, like you said, it is very much a fantasy, unfortunately, but it does make you think, what if? And hopefully for some people, it makes them think, what if me? Like, what if I can? And if they're in that position or in close to a position, of power. I mean, I'm not necessarily thinking that like politicians are reading Transformers or anything, but like this kind of fiction and these kinds of messages can change minds and change hearts and can affect people. And the choices that they make. So yeah, it's a powerful moment, I think.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, you got it there. You got it at there as well. But for me, what makes this so cool and inspiring, and again, part of why the series has stuck with me is, okay, yeah, not a lot of politicians in the position to make a call on a nuclear strike are going to have read Transformers, right?
Yeah.
But it makes you think, what if they had? Like, it legitimately allows you to think, oh, well, the world might be better if they had. And that's a really powerful thing to say about a piece of fiction.
Yeah, it is.
So we talked about role models in pop fiction and things the other day. That was what got us into that Gandalf conversation. But yeah, Optimus is genuinely in that category for me. And it's specifically the Marvel Optimus as begins to be expressed in stories like this, where it is this genuinely giving you a figure where you can think, if I were in a similar position, God forbid, would I be able to make a moral call there? And it gives you a template for thinking about that in truly a sincere way. And yeah, I just think that is, as silly as the wrappings of this can sometimes be, I think that is really powerful. And it is something that will mark this series more and more as we go into later eras of it.
Definitely. Yeah. I'm interested to see, how things progress in terms of the story and get even more into those elements and themes. So, but yeah, it's nice to see even this early in the books.
Let's fly a little close to the sun in Icarus Theory.
Yeah. Let's get our wings melted off by some sun, the wax stripped down. Okay, let's go.
We're back. That's going to stay in.
No.
So the Icarus Theory is our next UK story set in this interim period, and we're back to Simon Furman as our regular scriptwriter, with art by Barry Kitston this time. So number one, right off the bat, you can tell this is Simon Furman back on strips because he's doing something he absolutely loves to do in this era, which is the rhythmical, repeated phrase across a series of pages near the start and end of the issue.
Yeah, we start out, the setting is this lake, this reservoir, man-made reservoir that has no fish, and he does point that out several times throughout the issue. It's funny, it did make me laugh, the first iteration of it, because it's this old man fishing in the river, or in the lake, and it says there are no fish in Lake Denna. And he's just obviously stewing over what has happened. He being this scientist man who works for Roxxon Oil. What is his name?
Oh boy, Professor Morris. And I did, in fact, have to look that up from a later panel.
Okay.
Yeah, Professor Morris. Yeah, you noted you actually did like this intro, and
I did like the intro.
It is, I think, among his better ones from this era.
Yeah. I don't know, it was caught me off guard, and it was quite funny. But then he does use it several times over throughout. I think the second one lands quite well too, because he is actually seeming to catch something, and then it says again, there are no fish in Lake Denna. And so you realize, it must be something else. And then later that pays off when you find out that he has in fact fished out swoop from the depths of this lake. And Professor Morris has created this kind of contraption where he can connect to and take over the control of any robotic entity, I don't know, or an androids of some kind. And so he does that with Swoop and controls him for some time, and is flying around, and he's actually really just enjoying flying for a while, kind of chilling, having a glorious time looking at the city from above. And then he kills a cop.
Oh, a security agent.
A security agent is
trying to blackmail him for doing overtime work, or for doing what he thinks is freelance work with Roxxon equipment.
Yes. So he is threatening Professor Morris with a gun, and then Professor Morris uses Swoop to kill him and silence him. So that's a bit of a dark moment for him. He does regret it. He's immediately sorrowful that he did that, but he continues controlling Swoop, and eventually flies over to the Autobots. And that leads us into the next issue.
Yeah, so a couple of just extra tidbits here. So number one, he works for Roxxon, which is one of the last, I believe the very last connection to mainstream Marvel continuity in either side of the Transformers comic, because that is a super tech company that is brought up in, I think, at least Spider-Man and some other corners of Marvel. And he winds up pointing Swoop at the Ark because he's convinced that the other Transformers are made by and controlled by BlackRock as an industry rival.
That's pretty key.
So he finds Swoop, and then he's going to use him to go investigate or attack the other Autobots. Should he really know where the Ark is? Questionable. I don't really think that's public knowledge, but we'll overlook that. So yeah, he sends Swoop to the Ark. Just a couple of things. I didn't mean to roast Furman too hard for his repeated sort of lyrical intros and outros here. I actually do think this one works pretty well. It's obviously something that he is really trying to perfect at this point, because he did it for the last set of issues we looked at as well, where it was the repeated instance of time. There's never enough of it. He just is really on this particular technique. But fair enough, it does actually I think it's an attempt to elevate the tone of the book, and I think it's something he's drawing from sort of heady or UK comics especially.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it does a decent job of it tonally. There is some fun
Yeah.
panel play in this as well. So there's that panel of Swoop flying to the Ark where we have a full page of these vertical panels from Swoop's perspective, then coming back to Morris.
Yeah, I like those.
Yeah, some fun layouts here for sure. As Swoop goes back to the Ark, by the way, Swoop, who is alive, so this is our revelation after he was seemingly killed in the last batch of UK stories.
We were so sad when he died.
Yeah, well, he's back. Rejoice. Our Lord and Savior Swoop. When Swoop is approaching the Ark, side corner, I guess, recurring segment, war themes, Optimus orders everyone to their posts because there's some sort of incoming attacker, and we get some narration. They move with fluid efficiency. Too long have they sat idle. They are a peace-loving race from Cybertron, forced to learn the ways of war. Now they relish the coming combat. So, a little bit of a starter theme here, too, with the Autobots not being made for war, but Optimus is pretty resolutely against this idea at this point. But this little tidbit of, well, maybe they've been doing this for so long that some of them are starting to enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
So, just going to put a pin in that for later.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a pretty universal war story theme, right? I think you can expect that in basically anything, even adjacent to the topic. But
yeah, if they're not made for war, this is just an aside, but why do they have so many guns and like weapons?
They aren't part of them. They just have guns.
Oh, they're just separate. Okay.
There are continuities. This is a broader Transformer thing, but there are a lot of continuities, especially later and especially post-Bay movies, where their weapons are built into them. And there are some in G1 where they're built into them as well, but they're little specific subgroups. And it's usually their gimmick, and it's usually toy-based. They're like trigger bots where they have spring-loaded flip-out weapons, which are great. I actually love those toys very much. But they have them in fiction too. But it's like a special gimmick. It's not something that's normally part of them. But yeah, there are a lot of later takes where they just have weaponry built into their bodies, and I don't love what that does as far as questions for the world building and themes. But yeah, here they're mostly just carrying around separate weapons.
Okay, that makes sense.
Except for Optimus's mysterious one-time only energy axe, which does raise a lot of questions. But forget about that. It doesn't matter.
Don't think about his energy axe.
We'll never see it again in this series.
We have to forget it every day. Yeah, part 2 of the Icarus Theory. Swoops in. He's still under the control of Professor Morris, but is attacking the Autobots as they're trying to kind of help him because they are shocked that he's alive. And obviously they want to calm him down because he's attacking everybody. And Optimus has this stroke of genius and he thinks, I know how to get... Because he's thinking like, oh, he might be being controlled by something. So he calls out, he tells him to transform and get down here this instant. That's an order. And that seems to kind of switch something in Swoop's head. And we learn later, I think in this same issue, that Optimus on Cybertron was once the commander of a group of Autobots that Swoop was a part of, who... They were called the Elite Flying Corps, and his name was Dive Bomb at the time. So Swoop, not always Swoop, but was once Dive Bomb. I wonder how he feels about that. Like, I don't know. He seems fine with the new mantle, and I guess we'll get into this later. Out. But okay. But yeah, Optimus was his commanding officer, and he was very much against that, and he did not like listening to his orders, and blatantly disobeyed them. So Optimus figured that, giving him a direct order would kind of snap him out of whatever control brainwashing he was enduring. So that does do the trick. Swoop/Dive Bomb confronts Professor Morris and says, "You're dead," and threatens him, but does not end up killing him. He brings him to the other Autobots and says, "Here, you deal with this human." And then just starts going crazy. Just starts attacking again, but he's not under the influence, not under the influence of mind control this time. He's just going a little bit crazy. And then Ratchet informs us... Wait, this is Ratchet, right? Who tells us that this is happening?
Yes.
Yeah, because he's the medic. Ratchet lets us know that there was likely some issues with the... What does he call them? Cybrodendrons in the brain and the body of the Dinobots who sat in a tar pit for 4 million years. So they're probably not doing too great. And then this thus throws the Autobots into this new mission where they're going to go try to find all the Dinobots so they don't rage out and kill a lot of people. Yeah, that's this issue.
That is the issue. So I think it's mostly sort of set up for the little Dinobot subplot here, but I do like, well, I guess a couple things. I actually wasn't super hot on the Icarus Theory and the Dinobot Hunt on my first read through of them as an adult, because I didn't read any of the UK stories as a kid. And I thought they were fine, but coming through them now in order, I actually do appreciate, thematically, I don't think there's a ton going on, but I do appreciate that they feel like a step up in maturity tonally for the book.
Yeah.
And so I can definitely appreciate if you read these as a kid, this would have felt so dramatic and so much more like adult, just in terms of tone and presentation than the book had previously been. And then, certainly that a lot of surrounding kids media would have been. So I definitely appreciate that. And I do appreciate also that Furman is not quite as big on the human interaction spotlights as Budiansky is on the US side. And we don't quite have Dinobot Hunt does more of this, where we have little human side characters throughout. But this, I think, is actually the most complete one, because we have Morris as sort of our human guest, and he gets a whole little redemption arc and is planning to atone for his crimes, and there's a little forgiveness message. And it's not a lot, but it is something I appreciate, and I think it's sufficient comic book drama for the story to move along and feel like it has a sense of stakes. So yeah, it's a nod towards sort of the mode that the US book is going to be in as well.
Yeah, I thought they were fun, and they, like you said, the presentation and the style of them does feel a little bit more elevated than earlier issues, especially on the UK side. So, well, except for some of the weirder ones that we got from the UK, which were great. But yeah, I think they're interesting issues.
Yeah, I like that on the end too, when Optimus declares we must find the Dinobots, there's a drawing of the other three, just their faces in dinosaur mode, or other four, in case you forgot what the Dinobots looked like.
Yeah, we must find them. They're these dinosaur ones. Don't forget.
Well, I guess we can move into our final story for this set, which is the 4-part Dinobot Hunt. Now, this is my least favorite structure in pop fiction, which is setting up a clear series of tasks or sub-bosses that have to be moved through in order. So 4 Dinobots, 4 issues. I don't love that it feels a little bit bogged down by that structure, as I think is usually the case with that sort of move. But these continue basically what I said about Icarus Theory, where, I don't think they're incredibly moving or even really complete feeling stories in some cases on their own, but there is a weight to them, and I think a sense of tonal maturation for the book that I can definitely see sticking with people.
Yeah, and there's more human element in these, at least parts of these next stories too. Like, they're in the desert somewhere. Oh, in Nevada. They say in Nevada's Black Rock Desert, they have these military men kind of digging into the earth, trying to excavate something, and it turns out to be one of the Dinobots. I don't remember this Dinobot's name. Who is this?
Snarl. It's
okay.
So normal to not remember all the Dinobots' individual names, especially in Marvel, where most of them don't have major roles. So yeah, several of them are just the other Dinobots, and this is one. This is Snarl.
Yeah, Snarl. But as he comes out and starts attacking these soldiers, the narration talks about a soldier who, one of the soldiers who is thinking about his wife and his daughter, thinking he'll never see them again. But then he's saved by the Autobots who arrive. And once again, we get a quick panel of horror here, where we get, I just want to call all of them Slag.
Snarl.
Why? Snarl. It's not even that hard. I'm just like, if it's a Dinobot, it's Slag.
No, I mean, they all have similar names.
Yeah. We get a little panel of Snarl's vision here, which is just, once again, that pixelated hellscape. where he doesn't see his friends, the Autobots. He just sees a lot of dots, and his instincts tell him that these beings are his enemy, and I don't blame him. They look kind of freaky. But then a fight ensues with him and the other Autobots who come to help him. We get a little bit of background here, a flashback to Optimus explaining the mission, what might happen if they leave the Dinobots to their own devices and allow their, faculties to corrode even further. They might just rage and hurt a bunch of people. So that's why they're on this mission. They're going to just try to save everyone. They also, each of the Dinobots get their own little, besides Swoop, get their own little panel where they're reintroduced and kind of hyped up. And Ian, I think you said, as I was reading through this, that's kind of like a toy push there, like saying what each of them can do. And then hilariously, when it comes to the last one, Sludge, his description, Optimus's description for Sludge is lumbering, less effective than the others.
Unless he's in water, so he throws
unless
a little bone.
He does say, unless he's in water.
He talks up Grimlock, Snarl, and Slag so much, and then lumbering, less effective.
Yeah, it's just kind of a sad intro for poor Sludge.
Can I stop before we move too far into this? I really agree on the little human soldier getting narration about wanting to see his wife and family again, which is not a great, not a depthful character, but taking a moment to give us that in narration is a level of absolute maturity for the book and the way it's approaching ancillary characters. There's no little one-off quip or joke. It's just a sincere... Yeah. It's allowing itself to be in that drama fully and to give us that little aside and to feel like there are real stakes and consequences. And I think especially for a kid reading this, it'd be, oh my God, this is so intense. So... this presentation of treating itself like a real war book is, I think, really interesting. And I definitely appreciate that. And then, into the dot vision, which is, more horror for how do these beings perceive the world. But I mentioned this the other day when you were going through the issues, but just the actual task of drawing those panels by hand with these weekly deadlines in the 80s, I think should not be overlooked because there was no computer to do that pixel work on. At least, there could have been, but it really doesn't seem like it. And we can see some, non-straight edges and stuff. I'm pretty sure this is not any sort of composite or printout. I think
it seems like, I'm not sure, but it seems like they just took a ruler and
just gridded it out and then filled in the corresponding dots and just did some pixel art on the page.
That's time
intensive. Around all the other art they were doing. Yeah, pretty intensive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think about it nowadays, and you can just use when I make pixel art sometimes, and you can just easily make a grid on Adobe Illustrator or something, and then just tap each, square to, or even just fill in a whole bunch of them to make a certain color. But yeah, no, that's really time intensive to do by hand.
I also want to talk about, before we move on to the page where we get Sludge getting roasted by Optimus, the map of the US that shows actual state borders.
Oh my God. Don't look too closely though, because they don't hold up to scrutiny.
Yeah. So some of them are misspelled, which is amusing, but I do appreciate that it's if I think about a US team doing a story set in the UK or referencing the UK, they would never bother to have any geopolitical boundaries drawn in that detail on a map. So, a little unfair on that front.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the rest of the Dinobot Hunt, we have this structure of 4 issues, 1 per Dinobot, where we get a little spotlight on them and whatever incident they're getting involved in. Usually there's a human spotlight as well. And then a team of Autobots who are going after them. And as well, we also have the Decepticons, who we haven't mentioned this, but they're being led by Soundwave as an interim leader at this point. So they're also after the Dinobots. They've learned that they're running amok, and they're going to try to capture, kill, or use them as a trap for the other Autobots. So we've got Soundwave's teams on the search at the same time. And our first story takes place at this secret military weapons base, where Snarl is attacking, and we get our little human interest piece. I think maybe the most complete human side character arc of this batch, sort of. It's not really an arc, but we get a fully focused or fully presented character, where we have this general who, again, more anti-war themes, does not agree with them building larger weapons at this base, and has in fact been waiting for and dreaming about getting the order to abandon the base or destroy the base if it's compromised. And Snarl in the Autobot's presence allows him to do just that and detonate the weapon at the base and, end the research. And he thanks them for that at the end and sends them all on their way with an incapacitated Snarl. So I think that's pretty interesting. That's a pretty unexpected take.
Definitely. Especially how they set it up at first, because when the Autobots arrive, there's an alarm that starts going off, and that's how we open on to this general or whoever he is, like running the weapons base. And it says, he's excited to hear this alarm. He's waited months to hear it. And at first it seems like, oh, he's so excited to like fight. And at least that's what it seemed like to me. He seemed really excited to fight whoever was infiltrating the base or what have you. But then it soon, turns out to be like what you said. He was excited to destroy the base, which is definitely a 180 for what you would expect from a character like that.
Yeah, and there's even specific narration where it says he doesn't agree with the need for bigger and bigger bombs, and he disagrees with being here, guarding this research. And yeah, I really appreciate that. It's not a full character arc, but it's this, again, side of the book where every time it touches on a war theme, which naturally is quite often given the premise of the book, but even when you have cutaways to human characters and cutaways to human characters in the 80s, right? Which again, like such a jingoistic, rah era. It is so steadfast about never making war seem cool or desirable or aggrandizing it. And it's consistent across the human side and the Transformer side. And miraculously, it's consistent between the UK and US book as well. So that's part of why I'm still here feeling like talking about this, and a lot of why it sticks with me. So that's the first one. And then the second one is set in a swamp where we have more Decepticon human murder. I think the most explicit we've gotten so far.
Yeah.
Where, Soundwave's team is out interrogating people in is this Louisiana? Or is it not specific? Northern California, sorry. But they're interrogating people in and around the swamp and explicitly killing them once they're done interrogating them, because we have police out looking for robot murderers later. And we see some of the aftermath. So again, just this uptick in sort of presentational, drama for the book. Yeah, they're after Sludge, who has made friends in a primitive mind state with a female reporter who sadly does not get any kind of arc here, which is a little bit strange for this story.
Yeah, it doesn't really delve into who she is at all. She's just, it says she's like a reporter or works on a TV network. But yeah, it doesn't delve into like who she is or any kind of like emotional connection, really anything like that, which is a bummer. Feels like they could have.
Yeah, they could have. So we actually will see her again. So she's a recurring UK side character.
She didn't dead?
Mm-hmm.
She didn't dead? She didn't
dead. Yeah, it kind of seems like she is maybe killed in this story, and it doesn't really do her any favors. But no, she'll be back. So this is a UK original and UK specific character who we'll see a couple of times. But yeah, there are a couple of pages of just the page right after her and Sludge are interacting where we see the Decepticons just going to town on a couple of different groups of people.
Yeah, and dead, like killing them, like
like dead. Like early issues of this book, it was like very explicit. The first U.S. miniseries that they were stealing equipment and walking away, and it was a little tongue-in-cheek and quippy, and very different now.
Yeah, I think, it's a little bit shocking maybe for like younger readers, but I think it's important too, because it's such a contrast to how the Autobots and especially Optimus are wanting to treat the humans. And it's maybe a little scary, maybe a little dark, but a good choice in my opinion. Yeah,
it's just a commitment to stakes. Like if the story is going to be about this, and if this is the main conflict, then I think it's incumbent upon it to actually show that, and it does. So
yeah. And I think sometimes we underestimate kids and what they can like bear to see in their media. Like it doesn't have to be egregious or like super gory or horrible or anything like that, but just something that, like you said, gives it stakes and makes it feel heavier, gives it weight.
Yeah, mean, this is why I didn't read these issues, but I read later U.S. issues as a kid, and they are this tone only ramps up from here. And yeah, I mean, those stuck with me more than anything else, Transformers at the time, and they're part of something that got me wanting to go back and revisit the series as a teenager and go through more of it, and I just found more to like about it. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, I think it does a lot for it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and then we move on into our third, which is Jetfire has now fully joined the Autobots, but he's still sporting the Decepticon badge, which, Lexi, you accidentally read a little bit ahead, so he loses that soon after these issues.
I didn't realize that would be such a, grandiose, or, it was such a meaningful moment for him, but yeah.
Well, I mean, the U.S. book is moving, with no assumption that these stories have happened.
That's
But,
true.
we get a
That's
story
true.
here while he still has the Decepticon badge. These are filler issues, if you want to think of them that way, but just in terms of their influence on the broader story.
Yeah.
But we get Jetfire, Jazz, and this one is called Ironhide. Lexi, he's done nothing in either side of the Marvel book so far, the Red Van. He's incredibly background. He's a big character in the cartoon alone.
Oh.
But the cartoon and comic have very different approaches to which cast members are prominent or not. But they go after Slag and some rodeo yeehaw cowboys, just some big old cowboy stereotypes who are trying to wrangle him, because apparently he killed a lot of their livestock. That's pretty grim. And they throw down with Laserbeak, and other Decepticons arrive in the aftermath of that and are able to reclaim Laserbeak and then go after the final Dinobot. Oh, sorry. We should also clarify the Decepticons successfully captured Sludge and some of the Autobots who were going after him.
Yes, they did. I like how Laserbeak, when he comes back to Soundwave, he's and any other time he's in his animal form, he's just he can only say rah, rah, he can only make sounds. But then the second he gets put into turns into his cassette form and then gets put into Soundwave, he's following my report on the condition. It's very eloquent, professional.
It's an odd approach, so it's not really clear on. I don't. Have we heard Laserbeak talk outside of this? We've heard Ravage talk.
We've heard Ravage talk. Yes, I don't know if we've heard Laserbeak talk.
But yeah, it seems like a funny, sort of strange approach, but I think it is the approach that the UK book is taking at this point, where he can speak, but only when he's in tape player mode, and he goes into, or tape cassette mode, and he goes into tape cassette mode specifically not to do real playback, but just to be able to speak, because he transforms into a tape, goes inside Soundwave, and then just starts talking.
Yeah, it's not like he's recorded.
It's not like a recorded
something.
message. He's just I can speak words now.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. Yeah.
We get a little bit of drama where Ironhide isn't sure if he trusts Jetfire yet. That's sort of as much characterization as we get in the issue.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this is the thing where this one, I think, feels the most sort of disposable to me of this set. It's fine. It's fine. It's well presented. But and I think the cowboys are the least interesting and least fully rendered of our little human side characters in this set.
I agree. Yeah. There's not much to them.
No, they don't really get an arc. They're just there for, just to have a human filling pages. But should we move into the final one then, which is the Grimlock issue?
Yes.
So a brainwashed Sludge, now under Decepticon control, is fighting Grimlock in this human settlement, which is really torn apart. We just have some really ravaged shots of this town at the beginning of the issue.
Yep.
And several Autobots have been taken out in the melee. Several more are strung up with a Decepticon trap in a ship nearby, so they have to deal with all of this and disarm the ship and the brainwashing sonar device, and then reclaim the Autobots and Dinobots. So they managed to do that, during the rah-rah, during the fight. But several Autobots are now incapacitated, and it leaves us on sort of a sour note as Shockwave claims victory. They've, the Autobots have suffered several casualties. The Decepticons have managed to steal oil from nearby this town, and Optimus is left on the final page reflecting on the fact that Soundwave is right. This has mostly been a loss for the Autobots.
As you said, Grimlock is now in this last issue, fighting Sludge, the brainwashed Sludge. I just looking through it again. This part made me laugh. The page after the title page, where there's 3 vertical panels and 1 horizontal.
They're going down the hill.
They're going down the hill. There's like Grimlock and Sludge are like battling it out, fighting each other, kind of rolling over each other, and they both just fall, and it's like 3 panels of them falling, and then the Decepticons are like, quite magnificent. Yes, I am impressed. And it's kind of a beat of humor that I didn't actually catch when I was reading through it, but just now it made me laugh.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Good juxtaposition.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, overall, I don't know. The Dino Hunt ones aren't my favorite necessarily. As you can tell, I forgot what certain things were happening when. But I think they're interesting enough to keep the story moving, and giving the UK side something to read in the interim of waiting for, I guess, updated US issues. Yeah.
Yep. That's kind of where I land. I was warmer on this read through than I have been in the past. So again, my first read through, I really wasn't fond of Dinobot Hunt because it felt very fillerish, and
yeah.
I don't love where it comes in terms of the book because I think it's stronger momentum going straight from the end of year 1 in the US book to year 2.
Mm-hmm.
But I do appreciate the tone of these, and I do appreciate that it feels like a tonal step up in terms of dramatic presentation.
Yeah.
And I think that carries them well enough that I don't think necessarily that a read through of both the UK and US books in order is hurt by them being here. And I think it is nice to see before the cast expands with this original set of characters. Plenty of them are never spotlit in either book, and it's fair. It's fine. It's whoever is important, and whoever isn't, Ironhide, is just there. It's fine. You don't need to keep track of them all.
Measure burn.
No, it's just like that's fine. That's how the book works with this like huge ensemble cast. It's just not all of them will be important or at the fore. And you were saying you couldn't keep track of them all. You don't need to. It's just the ones that are important will be, and the ones that aren't will be a background name and face occasionally. But it's nice to get some more confident stories with this set of characters before we move on into year 2. Mm-hmm. And these do feel confident. And I do like some of the human presentation elements, and I especially like Crisis of Command. So this whole little sequence, I think, is more worth having than not. And it's interesting what it does for the sort of storytelling tonal maturity of the book. Although I think the US book at this point is a little bit more mature in a non-presentational sense in terms of the storytelling it's doing. Mm-hmm. But for some additional little adventure comics, I think these have more than enough going on.
Yeah, I agree.
We didn't talk about Soundwave very much. Soundwave, our interim leader, Starscream has a moment of vying for it and is shut down because he doesn't have the foresight. I think Soundwave is pretty good. Maybe they should just leave this guy in charge 24/7.
Yeah, he seems to be doing a pretty good job by the Decepticons. They seem to be in control most of the time. Yeah, Starscream just can't catch a break with his vie for leadership, his campaign.
But it's that thing where Optimus talks about it, and you talked about it the other day, where it's the best leaders are the ones who don't want it. I think maybe it should be Soundwave. He seems like he's doing the best job.
Yeah, he's not doing a bad one, that's for sure.
He doesn't have the ego.
Yeah, he's not all wrapped up in it. Yeah, Starscream he wants it too badly. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and Megatron and Shockwave as well. Soundwave is here solely by default, sort of, by necessity.
Yeah, he's just like, well, I'm the leader now, so
I guess it will be
here's what
me.
we're going to do. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it for this batch. You've already read a little bit ahead into the US book, so I don't know if it's worth doing predictions. And again, we're kind of at the end of an era in the UK book here, so just heading into year 2 of stories. So yeah, that's it. That's fully it for year 1 of the book and the first batch of cast members now. Next time we tackle US issues number 14 through 16, and we'll see you all then.
All right. Let's roll out.